family. I am here with a magical moment of young musicians. And this is Kim, Sister Kim, and she has a message about investing into the future musicians of our community. Sister Kim, tell us what you got here.
Hi, everyone. Kim, proud parent of children at the Big Apple Leadership Academy for the Arts. We teach HBCU high-stepping marching band to our kids from age 5 and up. It is a free after-school program, tuitionless, and it's open to all. Our kids are amazing. If you can, jump on our website. We're looking for support, donations. Our kids need new instruments so that they can high step on. Our website is www.bola.org, BALAA.org. And I appreciate the time. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And so, family, listen up close. We're talking about investing in the artists of tomorrow. By investing in them, if you have a little expendable change to invest in the youth, the genius, this is the opportunity. And in the description on this video will be the details of sending your donation to PayPal or Zelle or Cash App.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome to magnets, crystals, and pyramids. Success is your destiny. Yes. Love, wisdom, power. Remember, always who you are. Yes. Yes. I am love, wisdom, power. Yes. Yes. I am love. Yes. Power. Yes. I am yes. I am love, wisdom, power. Yes. Yes. I am love, wisdom, power. Master. Yes. I am. Yes. Love, wisdom, power. Yes. I am. Say yes to yourself. Yes. I am. Yes. I am. Master. I am. Yes.
Okay, greetings and welcome, family, to a special show of a guest we're having here tonight. That is a first timer, highly recommended by a good friend of mine named Steve. Tonight, Steve won't be here to give you the formal introduction, bro, but welcome anyway to Magnets, Crystals, Pyramids. And Max, he was saying, got a whole lot to share. So without further ado, family, like, subscribe, share. And Max, tell us who you are, man, and what your incarnation is all about.
Grand Rising, how are you doing, brother? How you doing?
All right, man.
Everybody doing out there? My name is Maxwell. I go by Max Wellness. Um, a little bit about me and why I'm here is definitely to be a seer. I've cultivated a space to really just understand that at my center, that's what it is, and just allowing myself
You
to
said
be
you're a
in that
seer.
center. Seer, absolutely,
SEER.
absolutely, brother.
Wait a second. A seer. Now, first thing pop in my head, man, is a person who has been gifted the open pineal gland. They can see into other dimensions, other entities, non-physical realities. Is that the kind of seer you're talking about?
I guess that would be the definition in that way.
So, in summary, you're saying you see dead people. Uh, something like
In other forms,
that.
in other forms, absolutely. I mean, I've definitely had my own interactions with the spirits from the other side and different connections in those ways. So that was something my mother definitely enabled in me as a young one growing up, and yeah, just definitely been cultivating that sight and like you got this beautiful crystal quartz up here. I feel like that is our other eye, in ways to see in those different dimensions and those different fractals. So just also grounding that and embodying that as I am here on this physical plane as well is to really understand that, we are never truly dead because we are energy.
All right. So now, how does that impact you? You're a young man. You're in the dating scene. How does that impact when you could see spirits around some young ladies? I guess I'm being presumptuous.
Yeah,
If you prefer the
absolutely.
gender, have what kind of experience have you had? Like, who's that big dude in the background walking with you? Have you ever had that kind of stuff happen?
No, no, definitely not. I have had some relationships with some young women that have their other relatives or people that are their, let's say, their angels in a way, have definitely come to me after, after encountering them and being in their energetic field for sure. And I'm just a messenger. I send a message and that's it. I definitely grew up around, Santeria and different magical ways, which you would say, like what we call brujas or what you would call witches, things like that. But women with a lot of gifts, and they've definitely enabled me in those ways. So when I am approaching these women, I definitely know now, which ones to kind of shy away from
You
or
better
really
believe
question
it,
why you're
bro.
in
You
my
better
field.
believe it. Be like,
Right.
nah, 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 nah.
Not today.
Not today. But why?
So,
Why not? And you see that big old ghost, you better not. Hmm.
right. That energetic field is all over the place and scattered and reaching. No, I'm all right. I'm all right here.
Have you ever had the experience you meet a pretty looking woman, and when you look in her eyes, she can't keep eye contact. Her eyes be floating around looking at everything else. What kind of energy
Yeah.
would you say that is?
Huh. I mean, from another point of view, when I used to encounter women like that, they would always project it back to me that it was me. And
Oh,
for some years, as I was growing up, I definitely did believe that, and I started to take that on. Um, and I think as the years went on, and I started to cultivate more of my center and more of a grounding and a rooting in that, it was really this state of safety and security within myself to see through that Maya, that veil, and to really understand that it was hard for them to actually look into the eye and see that reflection. So now I've started to understand that that is that energy that is looking to be harmonized, that there's something in disharmony that is there when they're entering in my energetic field. And if I know that I'm this sun, like you're not definitely looking into the sun, and it's some people is they're too sensitive for it or they can't take it, but it's that brightness, it's that shine, and it's that light. And the more I feel personally, the more that we polish ourselves, the more that light comes through. So you start to see how that energy starts to harmonize because the lady that I'm with now, she sees that clearly. We consistently, even in the practice of, eye gazing, it's a somatic work, but it deepens that bond. So that's how I know, it's a true one. It's a real one that can actually truly look into the eye of God and not look away, not stray away, not feel intimidated, not project back.
yeah. Let's talk about that. How
Mm.
important? I'm gonna pull you full screen, man, so you get the full visual. Folks can get the full visual on you. Tell us about eye contact, man. What you have learned in your present or your collective experience. But what tell us about eye contact? What's the importance of eye contact? Um,
Okay.
and when you get vibes, tell us about eye contact, as if you was talking to your children about eyes.
Oh, I was talking to my child. All right, listen. So the way I would break this down, the way that I see it is holistic. So I want to take it in three different parts. And let's take it in a frame of something that's familiar to people, right? It's like the Bible. The Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. You see these trinities. You see, Cyrus, Isis, Horus. You see all these trinities. So when we look at ourselves in the sense of a body, And I know I have two eyes and I'm seeing in two different directions, and they make one picture for me to witness. And if there's a deeper understanding of this third eye, this pineal gland, in the sense of the body, what it does to the central nervous system is it's really the etymology behind exactly what you said, eye contact. You're coming in contact with eye, and the I in a sense of the one, God, divine, whatever you want to call it, Krishna, Buddha, doesn't matter. It is this I, and it is the self, truly. So in your body, what it actually does on a neurological level and on a somatic level is it calms your nervous system. If we're noticing, our central nervous system has two languages. It has parasympathetic and sympathetic, either basically reactive or responsive. Now, that eye contact is creating an effect of reaction, then it's heightening our sense. We can't necessarily hold on to that, so we're not regulating. If your body is actually responding to it, then the central nervous system is calm. This is where we have a sense of clarity, of peace, of bliss, of all of these different things. So I definitely always encourage my clients when they're looking or they have a dysregulation in the body, when you're having this eye contact, this is how you notice. It's a language that your body is speaking that's telling you, hey, this is making me uncomfortable. And it's up to us if we can actually regulate our system to come in and say, what is this feeling? Can I sit with this feeling while I'm contacting I? Now, in a sense of the mind is thought, the mind is man, the mind is head, like all of these different things. Now, when we make eye contact, we know that these are the windows to the soul. So there's something that is innately happening within our left to the right eye, our right to the left eye. So we're having this contact now, even neurologically and neuroplasticity, we know this, that even if we're having a conversation with somebody, we look into their left eye to soften them, to make them more responsive. Because we're speaking to that right side of the hemisphere of the brain, which is the feminine side, the receptive side. Now, when we're looking into somebody's right eye, this is where you want to start. If you're having a business conversation with somebody, or it's some type of logical conversation that you're having with them, then you look into that right eye. And this is where you're establishing dominance, you're establishing your assertion, things like this. And what it does to our brain is it tells us where our power is going. Now, for me personally, when I make eye contact in that way, I always allow myself to be with thought. It's not that I'm thinking. It's not a process of thinking. It's allowing my mind to go in a place of thought so that I'm being one with that present moment, so that my mind isn't thinking about what the next thing to say to this person, or thinking about, oh, if they're looking at my hair, or I have something on my face. So we step out of, again, even in correlation to that body, we're stepping out of that reactive state and coming into a responsive state. We're coming out of that thinking state and coming into a state of thought. And now, when we look into the spiritual aspect of it, we're looking at energy. If I'm looking directly into your soul, I'm not looking at your physical avatar that's here, that's present, that, can sway me with, body language or all of these different, dark psychological things. We're actually contacting spirit. And in this, when we, I guess what you said is like that, the seer having that open pineal gland or that decalcified pineal gland, if I have that deeper understanding of spirit, and I understand the concept of eye contact, I am making contact with I, then my spirit is actually addressing the I within you. And it's not coming from a egocentric state, a state of, I'm self-centered. It's coming from a centered self. And it's a recognition of, almost like what they say is like namaste, like I recognize you, I recognize the God in you. And when I understand that from a spiritual aspect, then everything that comes out of my mouth or my body language or whatever, everything softens and that spirit can actually communicate. And for me, even in reference of sacred geometry, that's where those articulations come in, when we see, all these different circles and these different geometric figures. When they come into contact, there's that meeting point. And for me, that's where these two eyes have this meeting point, and you see that middle, and spirit can actually connect to spirit.
Wow. Have you ever done like any kind of healing by looking just holding eye contact? Have you ever done that with your friends or loved
Absolutely.
ones? Tell us about it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I personally believe that there's a deep healing practice in eye contact and in the sense of being in that silence. I think it's a healing moment for both the giver and the receiver, because in that moment in time, you're completely present. And if I was to go into the conflict, right, like I personally have a lot of resistance towards technology, right? And it's because of this camera thing. I understand and I fully see the benefits of like reaching out to people, and you're spreading it all across the world and all of these different things and the capabilities. There's a million different pros to it. But that subtle difference that you get, the difference between looking into a camera lens and this artificial eye, and the difference that you get from these healing aspects of looking into your child's eyes for the first time. Now, I'm gonna be really vulnerable with you, and I know it's my first time people are going here, but a huge piece of my story was when I was in prison. I was in prison for 3 years, and when I first went into prison, 2 days later, my daughter was born.
Wow,
Now, for the
congratulations,
first,
man.
thank you. Now, this was
Firstborn?
13 years ago. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
firstborn. I was
Well, that's some
young.
that's some eye
Um,
contact for sure, man. You was able to. I say you was able to pollinate your queen while you was physically restricted, and ta-da!
well, no, no. She
Oh,
was already pregnant,
oh,
and
okay.
I ended up getting incarcerated. And the
Oh,
day that I went into jail, she gave birth 2 days later.
wow.
So, in that, there was this deep disconnection, right? Like from the father and all of these different things. Now, when I got to about 6 months in, I was in county for like 8 months. Now you can't necessarily bring a baby or a newborn into the facility unless they have their shots and like all these things, right? So I had just gotten sent. I was about to get sentenced to go upstate, like up towards Canada. Now I kept getting photos of my daughter and all these different things, but all the photos she's sleeping and she's in all these cute little things, but there is something in me that just kept saying, I need to see her eyes. I need to see her eyes. I need to see her eyes. And when her mother finally brought her to me the first time to visit, she just stayed asleep the whole time. And I'm like stressing my telepathic abilities, like, wake up, baby, wake up, baby, wake up, baby, you know? And during that time, I ended up getting sentenced, and I knew I was leaving in about two or like a month or so. She came to visit me one more time, and I remember looking at my daughter, and her mother was holding her, and I just kept saying it so strong, and I felt this pull. It was almost like gravity coming out of my chest, and I was just like, I just need to see your eyes, and please wake up. And she started opening her eyes, and she just looked up at her mom, and she was like all confused, and then she looked at me, and she just smiled, and like that
She recognized you.
like that, it happened. And then
Wow.
that's when I finally felt, wow, this is a father. This is what it means, and everything poured into me. So that deep healing that you're talking about in a sense of eye contact, it's not only just with our children, but I think it's something that's crucially important and is not necessarily missing, but we could use a lot more of it now in humanity. So I encourage anybody that's out there, if you have a partner, practice eye gazing. Just sit down in a still, quiet space. Put some soft music on, but just stare into each other's eyes and be with that presence, be with that stillness, and be with that eye.
That's a powerful um, healing modality. I want to introduce you to Kafunya. Kafunya, this is Max,
Hi,
I healer.
greetings, Max. How are you?
Peace
Yeah,
and
and
blessings.
he was sharing some.
Oh, I was listening. I
Mm,
was listening.
Please continue,
Congratulations.
brother. Go ahead.
thank you. Um, yeah, I mean, I feel like in this sense, as we're deepening, right, our connection with God, with the divine, with the self, for me, I always encourage people to just find their own way to that center, because everything is medicine. Like, this whole world is medicine. And when we continue to find those different ways of how to receive that medicine and cleanse and polish our mirrors, then we can really be true reflections for that God that is outside. It's like, if many came from one, how can I recognize that one if I can't recognize it within self? So for me, it was that consistent understanding and going deeper, going into the deep internal work, whether it be through meditation, whether it be through movement practice, somatics, breath work, everything that I was endowed with. And my mother blessed me with my name of Maxwell. And here, 35 years later, I'm Max Wellness, and I have a wellness business, and everything is coming to me naturally through massage therapy, through nutrition, and it was actually healing for me. I used to be 260 pounds,
Mm.
and one day I just woke up and it hit me so clear, and literally it was in a mirror. I mean, you couldn't tell me I wasn't the sexiest, chunky dude out there. I had all the confidence in the world. But this one day I woke up and I looked in the mirror and I heard this voice in the back of my head, like, you can't live like this. And I remember about, let's say, 10, 12 years after that, it clicked as to what that actually meant. Not in the sense of like, oh, you can't live, partying and drinking and eating Chinese food and doing all that stuff. It was really the deeper understanding, like, you are not going to be living. Like, you will die if you keep living this way. And that's what
Mm.
really shifted me. So it was almost this imminent threat that was on my life that really snapped me out of it to make the change. So I see this blessing that my mother placed in my name, with this sense of wellness, and it's like maximum state of wellness, and you can get into etymology with the suffix of ness, and it's a state, quality, condition, and all of those things. But I think at our center, all of us are truly maybe you're in a state of seeking wellness, or you're seeking being healthy, or you're seeking all these things, whether they do pills, or a tummy tuck, or like all these fixings, but there's nothing to be fixed. When we understand that wellness is a state of being, and we rest into that center and receive from God, that is really what we're truly seeking. So in that state, that's where I found, when I came to that revelation, it really settled into me, like, oh, you're not seeking, you are a seer. You are a person that sees. You are a being that sees. If you see this clearly and you stay still, everything is already done.
That's pretty powerful, man. I had an aunt, my mom's sister, who she was gifted, and they've always used this expression, the Southern expression, being born with a veil. You ever heard of that before? Being
Hmm.
born with a veil over your eyes. Tell us
Hmm.
what does it mean when somebody's born with a veil over their eyes? And Kafunya, feel free to join in on this, because this is going to be a learning curve for me.
Hmm.
I've heard of it before, having, children, babies that can see. And yesterday, when we were at Nicholas Brooklyn, a couple came in with their newborn, which was, I think he was like 3 months or 2 months. And the way they look at you is like they recognize you. Like, I didn't know this baby from anywhere. And as soon as I asked the mother, may I hold your baby, he started smiling, and I was talking with him.
Hmm.
And it's amazing that the babies that were born, I think, during COVID and after, I've heard that they're very enlightening. And like,
Hmm.
I was taking care of a baby from it was 3 months, which I call my godchild.
Hmm.
And she just turned 1 yesterday, and she is
Wow.
amazing. I look at her and I said, how are you, God? How are you? and they just
Thank you as well.
smile back at you because they know.
Hmm.
They may not be able to express it verbally, but with their actions and how they feel with you, they're amazing beings. And I love babies even when I was a baby. So yeah, the veil is real, and even with adults, the veil is thinning as well with certain
Hmm.
vibes. And I'm glad to know that you are with your daughter now, right?
She lives in Jersey with her mother, but we see each other, pretty frequent.
Yeah, I live in Jersey too.
Okay. I'm right
Jersey
across the
City.
river in New York.
She's getting rich. She's lining you up, man. She's gonna go come and she's gonna come and see your daughter. Tell her microphone you.
But listen, I'm all open for all the great influence and just the wisdom that's coming from you. I mean, that is the divine
I love
feminine. That
them.
is wisdom.
Yes.
So
I'm
more
in
power to
Jersey
it. Yeah,
City.
line me up. She's
I'm
actually
in
up a little
Jersey.
further in Waldwick.
Oh yeah, okay, I know it. Well,
Yeah,
nothing that a PATH train or a New Jersey Transit can't get to.
that part. That part.
Yes.
But yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think that a lot of these children come into this world in that way, and I think it's not necessarily a responsibility for the parent, but it is a weight to hold to allow that veil to be thin as much as possible. And I think that comes in with conscious parenting, having that understanding. And for example, like with me, when I was a child, I saw spirits all the time. I
Mm.
mean, one of my best friends when I was 11, he passed away, and I went to the wake and came home. He was sitting on my bed, and had a full conversation with
Wow.
him. And after I told my mother about it, and she's like, "What?" you know. But my mother definitely has those gifts as well, and she understood and was just never like placed a sense of fear. So I never had really like resistance to it. And I think that's the part where you're talking about this veil of how we come into this world. And when we look at it on a macro scale, we just came out of that age of Pisces, which is the ending,
Hmm.
the unconscious, all of these different realms, and we're coming into this new age of the Aquarius, which is that higher above, higher consciousness that's really looking down and viewing those things. And just like you said, with these children that are coming into this world, it's like they already know you because
Yeah.
they do. And I feel that when we come into this world and we come through that portal and we cross that gate, it is up to us to yes ascend, but bring that energy up. But there's so many different conditions that we have all these blockages, which is what we deal with our past generation, our generation now. And for me, it's like, how can I polish myself again to be as clear to allow that light that's continuously flowing, like we are a prism for these chakras or these light centers that we have in our body, to pass that on to my children, to the youth, to this new generation that is coming in, because they already know. But how do we stop, or like, let's rather say, inhibit ourselves from placing those conditions that are from us, that veil that we know, okay, you have to look this way, or you have to put your shoes on the right way, or you have to eat the right way. And it comes into this state of doing things right and wrong. And for me, the veil translates into judgment. And in the sense of judgment, that's where we get the concept of duality. And we come into this world. The child knows no right, no wrong. They get
Right.
taught that. This shoe goes on that foot. You use that fork to eat with that. It's like, who told you that? So we grow up with this conditioning, and that's really what I see is that fogginess, or that resin or residue that gets placed onto this mirror, and then the child has to grow up, trying to fight through it to see clearly. You know,
Right.
so I do think, we children are born with those veils when you come into the hospital system, when you come into the American system, this Western culture, and all these things are placed on this pure being that comes in so
Mm.
perfect, you know, and it doesn't even know English, but as soon as you say, can somebody hold me? It's like, yeah, yeah, because there's that resonance in that language of love and that resonance of emotion,
Yeah,
and it
they
just
know.
that's what they speak. hmm
They
And then
they
we get taken away from that with our words.
facts. They definitely know because sometimes when I'm walking in the street and it could be a child from any nation, they would
hmm
automatically start smiling and waving at me. I mean, it's a crazy. It's not crazy. It's normal because they see what other people are not seeing. And
hmm
sometimes it surprised me. I said, "Oh my God, hi, how are you?" You know, and it's the same with animals too, like dogs and cats.
hmm
They just know the vibration of your voice, or they just see things that you're not seeing because you've been, how can I say, not corrupted, but you've taken on all these earthly things about how you're supposed to dress and this and that and
hmm
blah blah blah. It's the same when I
Yeah,
have my
it's
crystals.
distortion.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
when I have my crystals.
Brother,
Yeah,
what was that?
yeah. When children, can you hear me? Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay. It's like when I set up my crystal table,
hmm
they automatically come over, but the parents say, "Oh no, don't touch." And I say, "Mothers,
hmm
no disrespect to your orders, but on my table, the children are allowed to touch the crystals because they feel they haven't
hmm
been uh, indoctrinated, you know,
hmm
about these subliminal energies because they're
Yeah.
more open to it. And I just
hmm
let them, touch the crystals. I even give them, when spirit says, you know, they need to have
This
this.
one belongs to this one. Yeah.
Yeah, I just give it away. So what you're talking about, and by the way, every day is Father's Day, but congratulations for doing your fatherly role
Thank
with
you.
your newborn. Is it a boy or a girl?
No, no, she's actually 13.
What?
hmm
Oh, she's 13. Oh,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Thank you. I
I
received
was
that.
getting ready to pull up on the baby.
Listen, she needed it now more than ever. She hitting that age.
Oh,
But yeah, just before you came on, Brother House was saying, how do I see, when I'm on the dating scene and I have this sense of being a seer and I see all these things about like this distorted energy. And I think it's that, and for me, I feel like personally that's the fountain of youth when we tap into resonance, when we tap into those subtle energies, because there's conversations going on consistently. But if we
yes,
don't
it's true.
build our sensitivity to that language, we're not going to be able to see it. We're not going to be able to hear it past our what we have been told is our five senses, but we have so many more
Yes,
languages, then we're not going to be able to pick up the conversation. It's clear as that. And with these children and these, animals, they don't speak English. They don't speak, Spanish. They don't speak Italian. So they're not, like you said, indoctrinated. They don't have that conditioning of just this one language of what we are actually doing. We are manipulating sound frequency and resonance with our throat to say it in a specific way to communicate to this person that speaks English, to this person that speaks Italian, or whatever the case may be. They're speaking on the original cymatics, which is the resonance of the heart, the resonance of the
yes.
emotion, the feeling,
All
that
right.
vibration. But it's so subtle that we've become desensitized as a human race to that language.
Yes.
And for me in my practice, this is what I translate for people. So if I'm doing body work, I can feel the body, I can feel the tension in the muscles, I can feel the subtleties when they're holding on or whatever. And all I do, I don't try to get them to understand it. It's, hey, this is what your body is saying. If you're looking for, a homeopath remedy or you're looking for an exercise remedy or a somatic practice, whatever, I give you the tools and that's it. Because those languages, if I've developed that sensitivity for that, that's my gift of staying where I am, and I'm not stepping out of my center to become a martyr or to become a savior to this person. I'm remaining where I'm at. I'm going to listen, receive, give you the tools, and reflect that back. That's it. That's all I'm here for. And I'm going to do it with a smile, because each practice and each interaction, what we were saying with this eye contact, each contact that I come into with a person, it is that contact with that eye. And I see that that is a gift and an opportunity and a blessing from God itself. How do you with this level of sensitivity? You've done the work to do the polishing, to do the listening, and to develop that sensitivity back that was taken from you from your state of purity. So when I
Mm-hmm.
speak about that fountain of youth, it is really remembering that childlike, not mentality, but state
Right.
of understanding, of listening. And really, when we start to tap into those conversations, that is the higher frequency, that is the higher vibration. We're always thinking like, oh, we need to go up and I need to have these intellectual conversations of da, da, da. It's like, no, it's really the subtlety. Like, where is
Right.
the subtlety in this material world that can actually tap us into divinity?
Right. That's why I feel grounding is important. Getting into the woods or just watching nature uh,
Hmm.
can assist a person in tapping in to their higher self, and
Absolutely.
understanding that, these different entities that we call trees and birds and butterflies and all of those different things, that they're functioning off of a frequency, because like sometime when I'm walking on my block and I hear the birds chirping and they're carrying on, and I said, "What y'all talking about up there?" you know, what are you talking about? What's going on in the community, in the trees? So
Right. Clue
I
me in. Clue me in.
let me know what's going on. You know what I mean? And yeah,
Hmm.
this is a great conversation about the frequencies, and the subtle energies that once you turn off your cell phone or turn off your TV or just quiet and stillness,
Hmm.
you'll be able to pick up certain energies.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you brought up, trees and this nature, right? Like, and you can see my shirt, right?
So,
This
oops, wait, I want one.
I'll send you a link. uh,
Oh, that's Uncle Hanky. Do you see that?
Yeah, that's that Kundalini that got his eyeball open.
That's beautiful. From Oh man, that reminds me of the tree that Inkaru was showing us of how the different elements come in from the earth, and he had like a
mm,
tree like thing that it's beautiful. I would
mm,
love to have the link. I would love to have.
yeah.
I'll
Yeah, I'll
put
definitely send you the company.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
In the studio with my email, and
Okay.
you can send it to me.
Great.
Thank you
I
so
got you.
much. This
Yeah,
is
no
this.
problem. And yeah, just to tap back into the aspect of the trees, right? I was reading this book, I can't recall the name right now, I was just trying to recall it, but this woman was studying trees for about, I think, 36 years or something like that. And she started to see that there's this communication, but the communication isn't top level. That is where they actually express everything. The communication is underground in the roots. That is where they connect to the network,
Mm,
and they communicate through the ground, through electricity and magnetic fields. And through this, it started to get me to think of, we think from here, and this is how we telepathically connect. So if we took our being, right, and rather than looking at our root chakra, that's in our sacral, and really turn that upside down, and really understood that this is where these are our roots. These are our tentacles that stay out here to be connected to the divine, to receive, you know. And this is something, this mentality of that inverted world is something I learned when I got in tune with my Rastafarian lineage and started to understand the real true meaning of my locks. And really what I was locking in is this connection, is this receptor of what I'm receiving from light, from the sun, from God. And it's really this understanding that as we start to look at those subtle energies and this communication that's happening, what we're trying to do here as humans is always trying to get back to our nature. We're trying to get back to God, and we're such in a rush to what? You're in a rush to die? Like, we're all going to the same place, but we forget the state of being that tree, you know, of looking at ourselves as that tree, having that subtle connection with nature, because I am nature. But we identify, and this is why I love brother Hank's just the imagery here of this sense of I am. And when I always see I am, I think of the root chakra, you know, like that is what's most connected to the root chakra of our attachment to things. When we say and we affirm that we are this thing, whatever comes after that I am is the most powerful thing, because it's going to shape and identify who you see yourself as and what you claim to be. And in that understanding, it's like, if I see this tree, I'm creating separation. I say, oh, well, that's that tree, and I'm me. Oh, I can't go hug that tree, or I can't, you know, take care of my plant this way. I can't speak into my plant because it's a plant. It's not going to understand me. That doesn't make sense. And we're thinking up here. We're thinking with the branches. But if we shift that perspective upside down, and we place those roots at the top, then yeah, I understand that I can speak to that tree. I can speak life into my plants and have them grow. I can speak life into my children and have them grow. I can speak life into my animals, and the same thing. So it's that I am, because I am all. But that deeper understanding is, it takes so much of that peeling back of the veil to really truly believe that. And I think personally, that's where a lot of people give away their power so willingly. Even when, like right now, I do a fast for 3 days every month, and right now is my day one for my fast. So I love how this is aligned. Like, I feel so clear. I haven't eaten since yesterday, and when I have these conversations sometimes with people, when they speak about hunger, and they're like, oh, you don't get hungry, or aren't you going to eat? Like, aren't you, like, isn't that terrible for you? And all these fear-based things, right? And it's about transmuting that, because even when we speak, and this is what my podcast is about, it's called Frequently Speaking, and it's about the etymology of how we speak and how we actually manipulate this resonance of what I'm saying. Now, in English, we say, oh, I am hungry. We actually identify with the pain or the emotion that we're feeling, and we give our power to this thing that we've been told, when you are hungry, you eat this food. So when we think about that in Spanish, they say tengo hambre, but it's I have hunger. So there's that identification that hunger is a thing, but I am not that. So it's almost like this self-preservation of your own power. And when I always encourage people to just look at that, subtle shift of just even your words to really what you're identifying. You know, I am angry, I am sad, I am sorry. You know, for me personally, I don't say sorry. I ask for forgiveness. I can apologize, because I'm aware that if I do something to you, right? If I'm in your way and I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, that's a reactive state, because now what am I doing? I am saying that I am full of sorrow. I'm placing sorrow in between me and you. I don't want to put that into you. If I say forgive me, then I'm placing forgiveness, the resonance of forgiveness in the middle of us, so that we can reconcile that, so we can harmonize that. And I'm offering an invitation to you to be in a state of forgiveness, rather than saying, oh, I am sorry, then I'm in sorrow, and then you're looking at me in this separated sense. because now I'm able to feel the pain and feel the hurt, and I have to stay in that. So that invitation, that subtle one, is one of those conversations.
You know what? I like how you, as you were talking, you remind me, and Uncle Hank, you can co-sign. He reminds me of P1 too.
P1.
Yeah. There's this other youth,
Mm-hmm.
who has similar frequencies as yourself. He deals with herbs and whatnot, and you remind me of the way you speak and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
How P1 is like that. Probably around your age and whatnot. And I like the fact that there's a lot of shift happening on the planet, and you know to be in awareness is key. And I like how you use that, because it's word sound power. And
Mm-hmm.
so when that reminds me too, that gave me a click. Instead of saying that, I would say excuse me, you
Mm-hmm.
know or like you say, pardon me, or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. If especially if you're not, like it's not purposely done.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I like how you did that analogy, instead of saying, oh, sorry, for
Mm-hmm.
what?
Right.
Well,
And that is you. One, I want to touch on that word sound power. I love that, and I'm gonna borrow that. I'm gonna receive that. I'm gonna take that right here because I love that. I'm gonna start using that.
yeah,
But just what you said, in that sense, when you say for what, I continuously say that to people, because from a psychological standpoint, like I understand the reactive state and how it's a condition. Whether you were in an abusive relationship and you had to keep apologizing, or you keep giving this state of powerlessness, and you keep saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry," and it's empty. Just like the same way we say, "Oh, I love you, I love you, I love you." We say it so much that a person is desensitized, and it's like, where's the substance of it? So every time somebody, says they're sorry for something, I'm like, for what? And it trips me out every time people are like, and they don't even know why they're sorry.
right. It's like a habit,
Mm-hmm.
a habit of saying certain English words, which are actually spells,
Mm-hmm.
as you know. So we have to be mindful of the power of the tongue too,
Mm-hmm.
and what our thoughts are too. So we're constantly, those who are in awareness of these different entities that have entered, all around us,
Mm-hmm.
that we have to be cognizant of what we're thinking. When
Mm-hmm.
you catch yourself, like sometimes you might even have a negative thought and it's not even coming from you.
Right.
And so you have to switch that up. Oh, that's not what I want to experience.
Right.
Yeah, this is
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah.
where are you based?
Here in New York,
Right, so
in
I'm sorry.
in the Bronx.
Excuse me, in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
So I have a location here where I practice body work. I also do online stuff. So I also have an app that's out where I'm consolidating a lot of like my courses, my meditations, things like that, so people can have this uh, virtual digital experience, and have access to it. But like I was telling Brother Hank earlier, I that is also me in a process of like transitioning and understanding how to get this old ancient technology and this new modern technology in a sense of harmonization within myself, because I'm a true believer in one-to-one contact, and that's where we're seeing that real true connection and resonation and that contact, um, but yeah, I also have there's another place that I work with downtown, doing body work, but a lot of my stuff is just this real holistic practice, and just like what you were saying with controlling the tongue, right, and this understanding that in the same framework that I was explaining to Brother Hank earlier, with our mind, our body, and our spirit, connecting all three of those, and just to use the same reference of the Bible, right? It's like Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. You what is it? The Son, the Word, and I'm not too biblical, but the Son's the
It's
Word and like God or something. Yeah, but the Word was Jesus and Jesus was the Word, and but basically there's this understanding that the three are not separate, but they have their own identifications, and that harmonization is in the middle where they all articulate.
mm-hmm.
And what you were speaking about is in this sense of there's so many other ways to say certain things and to convey what you are actually thinking. So if my mind is not clear and my words are coming out and that's not aligned, then I can't be aligned with the Most High. So
Yeah.
those three are disharmonized. So um, in, let's say, in the container, right, of the men's retreat that I'm doing in October, this is something of an invitation to get more brothers, like you said, this brother P1, and brothers like myself and the brothers that I'm around that have this understanding of this center, of where
Mm,
they're coming from, of that harmony, and have the courage and the strength to really say, you know what, my mind isn't as clear as what I'm saying. I'm doing the action, but why are those other two not in alignment? And it takes a hard lesson, and it's a hard pill to swallow, to turn around and look at yourself, look at your shadows, look at the unfaced things, and look at those two things and be honest with ourselves and say,
yes.
yeah, this thing is actually out of tune. If I understand that my body is a vessel and it's an instrument for God to play, and the symphony is all off, and the trumpets are over here, on A minor, and the flutes over here on E sharp or whatever, it's not gonna play right, and we're not gonna feel in sync. We're not gonna feel in harmony. So
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like really understanding the things that helped me on that way and share that, because that same understanding of controlling your tongue, or even controlling your thoughts and your mind, the things that you see, that the stuff that we are so indoctrinated here in the Western society of
On
consume,
you.
consume, consume, because we're consumers, because we've been born into a business, we've been born into this plantation, we're always consistently consuming. So that idea of fasting, like, yes, I practice it with food, but I also practice it with technology. I practice it with people. I practice it with
Uh,
um, sound, with speaking, a lot of different things. There's days that I just say, hey, I'm not going to talk all day today, and I still go about my life, but I communicate with people, I'll write, hey, I'm not speaking today. Whatever you got to say, like, cool, I'm with it. And if I'm not, I'm not with it. But
right.
it's really those things of looking at how stuck we are and how much of a slave we are to these things that are really truly our masters. And if I want to master self, and if I know that I'm coming back to that self, then I'm the only one that can look at these things and shift those aspects for myself.
Facts.
So I always, like, every month I do practice this fasting period, but it's really looking at how can another person see where those things are at in their life. And really it comes down to just honesty and being true with yourself and liberating yourself, because that is the true freedom, and you're the only one that has the key. Like, nobody's enslaving you. But just like you said, if I'm thinking this thought and it might not be coming from me, maybe I was in a past relationship with my ex where they kept
Mm,
talking down to me and talking down to me and talking down to me, and I gave up that power, because yes, I was vulnerable and I let this person in, but you're
yeah.
also letting that energy into your field. And sometimes when you cut that person off, that energy stays with you. So you have to also be able to discern what is your energy. Where do I have a leakage? Do I have cords still connected to my ex from 10
Facts.
years ago, to a business 5 years ago, and all of these different things, and really be cognizant about my energy field. Has it been sealed up? Have I cleared out and sifted out through that energy? So now that I'm in what they call like the golden egg, or this cosmic egg, of all of my fields emanating and radiating out my own energy,
Mm.
you know?
I there's a couple of teachers. Uh, well, we're also students and we're also teachers too. And
Hmm.
I like to listen to Neville Goddard, who was taught by Ethiopian Seer.
Mm-hmm.
I love listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza
Mm-hmm.
because he went through a healing crisis and he got in contact with the intelligence within his body system.
Mm-hmm.
um, Dr. Bruce Lipton to let us know that if we're dealing with certain dis-ease in our body system, that epigenetics goes above, what you might think it's hereditary, but
Mm.
so we have all of these different
Speaking my
listening to
language.
listening to Uncle Hanky and some of the guests that he has on
Mm-hmm.
uh, that resonates with me because sometimes a person can get caught up and listen to all of these different people, but then wait a minute, what do you have to offer?
Mm-hmm.
What are your gifts inside of you? But when I listen to them, it's like a resonance. It's reminding me of
Mm-hmm.
what we're capable of being and doing. So, it's and the fact that you talked about fasting, your body lets you know when you should really do those things. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? And that's important to fast from electronics. That's important to
Mm-hmm.
go sit in the forest or hug a tree or those things are reminding you that we're not separated.
Mm-hmm.
We just
Yeah.
come in different entities, and that source energy is in everything around us. And
Mm-hmm.
the fact that everything that we're dealing with was once non-physical.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that, including this computer, including the room that I'm in, the chair that Uncle Hanky
Mm-hmm.
is sitting in, and those headphones were once non-physical. But
Mm-hmm.
because we put the energy into it, it made manifest. And I
Absolutely.
also loved how you talked about, putting ourselves upside down because the communication that the trees do and the mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
I am learning so much about mushrooms and
Mm.
how they help you integrate, the brain frequency. Look, it's a marvelous time that we're living in. It's
Absolutely.
so amazing how when you're in the flow state,
Mm-hmm.
how things happen for you.
Absolutely.
I was in a flow state. You know, some people don't like to do spontaneous things, and I understand it. But sometimes being spontaneous is good. And so I did a spontaneous thing this strong, and I went to the 50th anniversary of Adunde in Philly.
Mm.
And that was amazing. I've never been there before.
Okay.
I never been there before, and I was invited by Ross Ben. He's an author, teacher, healer, uh, and he told me about it. He said, "Kafunya, I had to make a call to let you know about this event and the possibilities of some artists being there." But the artists who were there were Dougie Fresh and Rakim were there. And then somebody had put a word out that Chris Brown might be there. Well, I'm a
Yeah.
Chris Brown fan. I mean, I don't mean a fan, but I mean, I just love the subtleties of his different music that he
Yeah.
has that brings awareness in between those
Mm.
lines that he
Mm-hmm.
sings, and I was noticing his angel numbers, 1111 and all of those things. And in the video, if you, and it's so funny in the video, I never saw the chakras that were all on his body as he was ascending, well,
Mm.
descending into, anxiety when he was singing that part of the next part of the song. But when I saw the
You see, now I'm gonna have to catch up on my Chris Brown. I had no idea.
yeah, me neither, and I saw him twice, you know,
Okay.
because I wanted to know what that frequency, I know what 1111 is about, the angel numbers, it's a master number and everything like that. And I'm just saying how your mind, like, oh, Kafunya, you need to check this out. And you're not necessarily thinking about it, but something comes and then bam, you need to look over there. So it was a combination of that, and I'm so happy that I was able to go. Me and my king man, we went together, and met up with Ross Ben. He's another person that you should check out. His book is called Rock of Ages.
I already put down the note to ask you about that.
Yeah, Rock
Yeah,
of
for
Ages
sure.
is his book, and he has a YouTube channel, and he has been on Uncle Hanky's channel as well.
Okay.
And uh, Radiohead, Black Magic 363, he's been on that, and other red pill and blue pills
Yeah.
thing. But I really like that when you talked about the communication underground that the mushrooms have, they communicate with one another. It's like when you do acupuncture and you feel the the
Yeah,
different,
those are your meridians.
they be communicating
Yeah.
with each other, the
Yeah.
meridians.
I actually, I mean, there was just so many gems right there. And what you said about, how you look to these other people and these other educators that have shared with you. And then now you're sharing that with me. It's like, this is also a remembrance too. The things that you're sharing, it's a
Yes,
deep resonance with me as well. I've dove into Joe Dispenza, Neville as well. And it's like this contact with this intelligence that we have, and
exactly.
I think personally, just like with mycelium, right? So I've also experimented with a lot. Let me not say experimented. I've also come into contact and built a relationship with a lot of different plant medicines that have called to me in those ways. And one of the first ones was mycelium. And what I also always tell people is, like, coming from a psychological background, and the background that I have with like ancestral medicine and like sacred ceremony and things like that, it's your approach, point blank period. It's your approach of how you contact a person. The energy can be weak. Like, you might have the best intentions, but if you come running up on Chris Brown all crazy, like, oh my God, he's gonna be like, wait, what? But if you come up and you approach differently, I think that is that where we spoke earlier before you jumped on about this communication of your central nervous system, whether you're in a reactive state or a responsive state. So I always encourage people that if they are going to go into plant medicine and start to build that relationship, to really meditate on it first, really receive that energy, because these are higher entities and higher vibrations and really beings that are coming into contact. And the thing with mycelium is the same network system that they communicate with underground is that it's almost identical to our neural synapses in our brain. So understanding your brain first, if you start to take mycelium, you might have this crazy trip, start seeing colors, and you get enraptured in that veil because there hasn't been enough layers that have been shed from your eye to really allow for that true guidance. Because really, it can take you off into this realm, but how do you get back? So for me, it's really that understanding of having a guide, and this is why I became a integrative coach for plant medicine with mycelium, with San Pedro, which is Wachuma, and also
Mhm.
ayahuasca, and doing these deep understandings and these teachings from these ancestral tribes, and indigenous tribes that are in Central and South America. Because coming from a Western point of view, we have to unravel a lot of things. So now when people
Absolutely.
get introduced to this divine connection, this intelligence, you can reach all the way out there and go into outer space and go into all the multi-dimensions, but you're just exploring your conditioned consciousness. And until you have unraveled those conditions, or you're able to see through that veil clear enough to make that true relationship with it, you can go all the way off, but you don't necessarily have a tether back. And that's where, for me, it's that understanding of like the branches, you
Mm.
you might be here in the trunk, but then that mycelium and that mushroom trip takes you all the way out, and you start to see like, this is your belief, this is your leaf, this is how you can be a
Mhm.
leaf. And you find the subtlety, and you're just moving and swaying in the wind, and it's so beautiful. And then you come back, and then you're a trunk, and you're so rigid, and you're stuck, and it's like, how do I get that connection? And then you start to, if a person has not diagnosed, but if they've had addictive habits, then you
Right.
can start consistently going to that, and now that becomes your dependent
Yeah.
substance or catalyst to make that connection. When the truth about it is, you always are that leaf, you always are the branch, you always are the trunk. And the more you create, you think, the more I keep going out to be a leaf, the more I'm going to build the relationship. But it's not about that. It's about that subtle energy of bringing that understanding of that leaf consistently back into that center, and having the ability to be both, and have that understanding that though I am here, I'm also out here as well, without losing focus.
Right.
So I always encourage people with that, is like, with the plant medicines, be ready, be honest with yourself. Am I seeing clearly? What am I doing this for? How do I
Right.
go in with an
Exactly.
intention? How do I go in with a guide for myself, so that I'm truly led by spirit, and I'm not just following these other illusions that are playing out, and all the hallucinations, because when you look at LSD, that was such backing by the government to start to alter people's minds and what they think. What I
Mm.
think I'm seeing, and then I start believing in that, rather than making a connection out of faith. Even if you look at the etymology of faith, right, you see this faith, and you see the I right in the middle. And then
Mm.
outside of that is fathom. I have the ability to fathom. So that sense of faith and resting in that God center, it's not in the plants. Yes, you're going to have access to it. It's a door, it's a portal, but you are that portal too. And how do I rely and have faith that whatever's on the other side of that door is always with me? How do I bring it back? How do I integrate it into the Western conditioning, so that when I do meet another person, I'm not just on that same resonant frequency, and they have access to my energy, and we're just exchanging it. And it's that
Yeah.
consciousness to say, okay, I'm going to speak to that I that's in you. I'm going to speak to that plant that's inside of you, you know? And you start to approach it with a lot more subtlety and a lot more quality. And I personally believe that that is what these higher energies or frequencies, or the plants, or they may be spirits, or whatever it is really bringing us back to, is that resonance that's within sacred geometry of how we are relating, because going into sacred geometry, we see all these articulations. Nothing is separate. And it's not like, oh, I'm a circle and I'm a dodecahedron, and everything is all intertwined, and it's layered on top of each other. And those are that's our existence made up, just like this. There's nothing like, oh, I'm entering in another dimension. No, you're there. It's always there consistently. It's all
Mm-hmm.
happening simultaneously. And when we start to decolonize our brain and really
Yeah.
come back to those old traditional ways, we start to really understand that, and we really start to face, and then we'll be able to see it. And I always tell people this: the deeper you go inside, the more it's going to project outside, but you have to be willing to see it. It's like, oh, why do I keep coming with this pattern? Why do I keep going back to this ex? Why do I
Mhm.
keep, eating all this food, or making the wrong decisions? It's like, it's just judgment. It's all of these different states that are within us that tell us, that's not me, I'm not that, and we just create that separation. So that's one of my biggest prayers that I have for humanity, is that we can build those relationships and focus on those articulations, where those circles meet, or those geometric figures meet, and really see what that creation is in the middle. It's not right, it's not wrong. It's like, what can I create in the middle, and go into that. And I feel like that
Yeah.
is going to allow us to be the creators that we are.
Yeah. Because I'm in alignment with everything that you're saying, and I really feel that people, from my observation, really want to, get really into themselves and bring themselves back to nature.
Hmm.
Like one of my mottos is, what good is a product or event if no one knows about it. And
Mm,
another one of my mottos is bringing uh, nature back to natural, because
mm,
natural, you lead all these labels. Oh, this is natural flavors, this and that, but it has
hmm.
absolutely, there's no nature in it.
Yes,
So that's
yes,
my motto: bringing nature back to
to
natural.
natural. I love that.
If we start, learning that we are not disconnected. Like, for instance, let me give you an example. When, there was a lot of talk when people are throwing a lot of plastic and whatnot into nature, I mean, into the oceans and polluting the oceans. And the reason why I came to mind that the reason why they're doing that is because they don't have any connections with the oceans. They think they're separate from the ocean. You know what I mean? They think they're separate from, like, if you look in the wild forests and kingdoms, the animals just don't go out to just kill one another. They might eat one hippopotamus for a whole month and they won't eat again.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But the fact is that bringing nature back
That,
to who we are,
mm-hmm.
we're not disconnected from each other. We're just different fractals of
Mm-hmm.
one another. And sometimes it's like when you look at the ocean, I forget which ocean, the Baltic Sea. I think it's the
Mm-hmm.
Baltic Sea, and they meet and they don't cross.
Mm,
You know that sea that I'm talking about? I think it's the Baltic Sea and another ocean. They don't cross at
mm.
all. They just meet, and you can visibly see the line. You know,
Wow.
because sometimes there's certain chemistries that don't mix. It doesn't mean that I don't love you or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. It means that, we're just not,
Oil and water.
and it's nothing the matter with that. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
not like when you're going into chemistry, you can't mix all the chemicals together because you're having an explosion. So
Yeah, there's alchemy to it.
yeah, there is alchemy, and I feel that this is what people are looking for more than ever, because the material thing is just one aspect. Okay, so I've been thinking about this material thing that I want to get, and let me see how it's going to help me evolve or devolve. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So this whole conversation is such a beautiful um, element to this evening, and looking at trees and just study nature.
Mm-hmm.
Nature can teach you so many things, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And this is, I mean, I loved everything that you touched on in just that, with even just this resonance with Hank's platform that he's created, with magnets, crystals, and pyramids. These are things based on, and this is not clout. This is way outside of ego. This is very centered. But in our African descendants, this is where the precision, the knowledge came from and was bestowed upon us in this sense of mathematics, in the sense
ooh,
of how to actually utilize, not use words, but utilize what we have been bestowed, which is sound, which is resonance, which is what you're saying is bring nature back to natural, this natural state. We've been told that, oh, these things are natural. No, what is define what nature is, because you're just telling me I'm going from here, but you're not bringing me back to chapter 1. You want me to start at
right,
chapter 5.
right.
What happened in the preface, And I feel like this is why, personally, this is my personal belief, and this is why so much energy has went into alchemizing the de-evolution and the inhibition of the African ancestors and the
Mm,
knowledge that we hold because of that power. Because knowledge is power, but what is knowledge? Knowledge is just information. But
right. And if
information
we're
is a pathway to wisdom.
using, you know, the knowledge it's all right for you to, but what are you going to do with that knowledge
Right,
is the important factor here. You know,
right,
I know this and I know that, but what am I going to do with it?
right. And I think that's one of those subtle differences too, right? Just to make this short correlation, when we say "I know" in English,
Oh,
we just think, okay, I know. But let's say in Spanish, you have two different ways to say it. You say "yo sé," like that's like our "I know," and then you say "yo conozco," like it's like I've met it. Like so, somebody can say, you know, tú sabes California.
hmm,
And I go, and I've never met you. And I say, sí, yo sé, pero yo no conozco. Like, I know of her, but I don't know her. So there's that deeper aspect of how we get to understand, you know? And I see that sense of how the Western way of living and the mentality, there's a level of desensitizing. I'm bringing this back to the central nervous system. When you are oversaturated with something, your body shuts down. That's
hmm,
desensitizing. Also, if I don't have enough of something, I'm desensitized, whether that be love, whether that be knowledge, whether that be food, it doesn't matter what it is. There's a balance to everything, but there's also a cause and effect on each side.
yes,
And what I always explain to people in your central nervous system is to really free your central nervous system, you have to see, okay, you might be scrolling through TikTok and be like, oh, but there's so much information, there's so much knowledge, and people know all these things. And I always ask people, okay, well, what you're coming to me for is to really look at how you can get more focused and clear your mind. But you're saying that all of these things are on TikTok or on Instagram and all these things. You're overloading your central nervous system with
right.
so much knowledge, so much information that is not being applied. You're not manifesting it. You're not bringing it down into the earth. It's staying here in your air, in the ether.
Right.
And that's why it's so stuck up here. So we're so mind driven. But let me take that little video that I feel is beneficial to my life, you know, somebody doing an outside garden or a home garden or something, and say, oh, you know what? That's exactly what I want to do. I want to manifest that. Let me take that video and I'm going to go do it. Apply
Right.
it, give it that time. But we're in such a rush and our central nervous system is so reactive that we
No.
stay consuming this knowledge because we have so much access to it. So again, it's that same thing with the fasting, the same thing with the consuming. It's like, what do I want to do with all of this knowledge that is bestowed upon me, because I see it as a gift? Yes, I have this little phone that's here. I can access whatever the hell I want to do on this phone.
Right.
Anything that I could. And that's the part where I feel like knowledge, the etymology is, there is no ledge. There's no ledge. So it's offering you this unlimitedness, and that's where we get intoxicated. That's
It's
where we
true.
become so addicted to it because we want that dopamine, and then we get drunk off of it. And then we want more, and then we want more, and then we want more. But we're not utilizing that knowledge to access that deeper wisdom inside, you know?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, because like, to reiterate what you were saying, is like it's like a overload. You know, like
Hmm.
you have this what do you call that uh strip where it has different plugs in it? A
Oh,
surge,
like a power surge.
a power surge. And sometimes when there's too much power or too much knowledge,
Cuts off.
trips. It
Yep.
trips. Yeah. Someone in the chat wanted to know, how can they contact you, Max Wellness? How can they contact you?
Oh, I sent the information over to Hank. It's for Instagram. It's Max Wellness, straight out like that, like it is, but ITS Max Wellness. My website is maxwellness.co, and then
Mm.
also on my YouTube, it's Max Wellness. So everything is it's Max Wellness.
Yeah. So Lauren, um, his Instagram, your Instagram is what again? Say it again.
It's Max Wellness. ITS Max Wellness.
Right. And your website again?
Maxwellness.co. Co.
.co. What is that you're taking?
So this is actually a plant from Colombia called Mambay, and it's made in the Amazon. So it's crushed up. Thinking in Spanish, it's crushed up leaves, like coca leaves, and then they mix it with ashes from the bark of the tree.
Okay, well, wait a minute now. We gonna talk now.
Hmm.
I went on this website. I've been to cacao ceremonies. I've been to cacao ceremonies, and I just received my 100% handmade cacao, 100%.
Hmm.
But not only that, I also receive the bark from the bark of the cacao where you
Hmm.
can make a tea. I haven't tried it yet, but I
Mm.
can't wait. And cacao is, you just triggered me. Cacao is amazing.
Hmm.
You know, it really opens up your heart chakra, and I'm sure it does a lot of other things as well, you
Hmm.
know? Yeah. So what you're taking is what? What do you call that again?
Mambay,
Mumbe.
Mambe.
And how, what is the, if you don't mind me, what is the beneficial of of that?
On what plane? So right, because I so again, like I told you, everything I do is holistic. It's mind, body, spirit. If it don't connect in all three and it is not all in harmony, I'm like, all right, it ain't for me. If I got two of the three,
Exactly.
I don't want it. So the
Wow.
way that I got introduced to it was actually through meditation. I was um, with a past partner. We were going to look at a retreat space, and this was during the time when I was living in Costa Rica for about 3 years, and we went out to the other side of Costa Rica, which is Monteverde. Long story short, I met a young woman there that she carried this medicine, right? And the way it was introduced to me was that it's for meditation.
Ah,
And and I'm just going to give you my relationship with it, because to go into the history, like, it's just too much. And really, it's the feminine and the masculine. So the masculine is the tobacco. So it's a tobacco paste that they actually take the sea water, and they boil it down to get the salt. They
mm,
mix it with the tobacco flower, like the flower of the tobacco leaf, and they crush it up, and
mhm.
they turn it into this paste. So now really the connection is understanding the balance of the masculine, which is the mind, the centeredness, the focus, the direction, and the feminine, which is the sweet words, how to speak sweetly, not only outwards. And my first interaction with it was through this young woman, and she was telling us, we were all in a circle, and she's like, this is about going inside and really listening, being silent, and just being with yourself. And I'm like, oh, that's up my alley. Like, I could sit silent all day. So everybody's around, they start playing their music and they're singing and talking, and I'm just like, I'm in my center. And that's again when I came into contact with this higher intelligence of this plant. So for me, there was that connection of understanding this relationship of this abuelo, like this grandfather and this grandmother, and really a recognition and an acknowledgement of the masculine and feminine that's within me, that resides within me. Fast forward, let's say 5 years, when I was in a different part of Colombia, when I actually went to go visit Colombia, I started learning that they sit with this in what's called a mambiadero. So you sit around the fire, and it's meant for more of a communal sense. So we're all receiving the word, and everybody in the circle is speaking. It's not just for yourself. So this was a completely different perspective and interaction that I had, and it broadened my relationship with this plant, because now we're receiving this clear word in a sense of understanding how we're speaking clearly, how we're not filling the space up with filler stuff, and we're also speaking sweetly. And it's meant also in the Amazon, this is what they sit with to have conflict resolution, um, to actually share stories and share histories and things like that. So for me, this was something that I really resonated with, in a sense of like grounding and really connecting to that. So I brought some back here to the States, so that that is in essence my connection. Now, in the physiological, you're like, yes, it does suppress your hunger. It provides you with all plant-based nutrients, going from magnesium to nitrogen to,
Mm.
I'm not going to rattle off all the amino acids and all that
Right,
stuff,
right,
but like I had to do my studying into the plants,
right.
outside of the process that they go through in the spiritual aspect, but go into the plants and what is this actually doing to my physiological body, and
Yes.
looking at that and saying, okay, I took a little piece of that. I don't 100% believe in that, but 33%, and then 33% to my mind, and then 33% to my spirit and my relationship to it. So for me, that was really the balance of having that understanding how to come into this meditative state and really create ceremony, because life is ceremony, and that's another piece that I wanted to come back to with your cacao, because even when I was in Costa Rica, right, and this is like, the heart center of cacao, and there are so many indigenous folk that I've started to see have shifted into understanding and welcoming in that Western mindset of cacao ceremony, because there's no such thing as cacao ceremony. They don't use it like that. Excuse me, they don't utilize it like that.
Okay.
This is the plant from the mother, and this connection to the process of making the chocolate. Everything that I've learned so far from Central and South America in these indigenous tribes is that it's about the process. And for me, that understanding and that listening to that and receiving that
Mm.
was one of the most precious things that I've ever taken from any of my travels, is that even understanding life, it's not about the destination, like, okay, I'm making this chocolate or I'm making a bar or whatever, but
Right.
it's that process of what it goes through, the prayer that goes into it,
Yes.
um, the touch, the handle, everything. And this is also something that I'm seeing from my Western eyes, even when you look at chocolate bars, right? Let's say, for example, when you go into your store, it might say 80%, chocolate or whatever the case is. Chocolate is not necessarily cacao. Cacao is spelled COCOA.
Right.
Excuse me, COCAO. So
Right.
the A comes first and then the O. When we see it in the stores, it's COCOA. So it's
Right.
backwards. And this is how you can tell that subtle difference between what's processed cacao and what's actual cacao.
Right.
So these are the things that, these people that are growing it, and they've been growing it for decades and probably centuries, and harvesting it and creating this process. And in that process is the ceremony. What comes out is the product, and that's really like their harvest. So they look at it as when you take a seed and you plant it in the ground and then it grows up and then you finally harvest. That's that process that they're looking at. That's their ceremony. It's
Yes.
not the ending. It's not the ending result. And I think if we learned anything from any indigenous tribes, and we're actually decolonizing our mind in that sense of, what can this tribe give me? What can we produce from this tribe? What can this, what can we distill from it? It's like really just looking at that and taking our lifestyle and our way of living in a rather than a solution based mindset, but a processional and a progressive based mindset. I think that that's truly how we can live longer and how we can experience more of life, because we're going into what you said, that flow state. We're in that middle ground, because even there's a book, Mikhail, I forget his last name. It's like some crazy long Russian last name, but the book is called Flow. I'll share that with you as well. And he speaks about it. It's like it's on a graph, and it's like this flow state is right in the middle. But on one side we have anxiety, and on the other side we have boredom. But that flow
Mhm.
state is right in the middle of that. And I believe personally that that is where our mindset, we have intention coming from the right hemisphere, and we have our natural state coming from that left hemisphere of the feminine brain. And when we create that flow state, it's this harmony of this masculine and feminine just dancing with each other.
Yes.
And once I saw that, it's like you can't unsee it. And that resonated so deep about this maintaining that balance, you know, because this is the movement. I'm consistently in flow, you know, like just like my
Right.
shirt, our DNA, everything is in a spiral, and this is what they teach. Um, so yeah, that was pretty much my connection
Yeah.
with this plant. And
I
it's not like you know, it gets you high and like all these things,
no,
you know, like people see me, you know, taking, they're like, oh, so like, what does it get you high? And I'm like,
I'm
you're really
already
wrong
high.
that part. But I'm like, you know,
Yeah.
it's not always about that high or chasing that high. This is something that actually brings you into that state that reminds you and consistently reminds you to stay diligent, to stay on point, to stay in your center, to stay in flow.
Yes, I agree. Where's Uncle Hanky?
I don't know. He dropped out a little while ago.
Uncle Hanky.
Oh, like pop back up. There you go.
Yeah, I'm right here, and you holding it down so good that I wanted to have the balance between the feminine, the masculine, and the crystal. So
Oh,
you're doing great, Kafunya. I'm just like enjoying listening for a change
Yeah, and you know
on
the
this
funny,
platform.
the funny thing is that Ross Ben showed me the cover of his book of this master crystal that was given to him. And when I was holding it, I said, look at all the sacred geometry that
mm,
man didn't do any of this. This was I'm flabbergasted, even though I've been working with crystals for, some time. I every time I look at a crystal and I see the different sacred geometry of it
mm,
and the brilliance of what came out of the earth,
mm-hmm,
it's like, oh my God, it's a beautiful thing to work with the elements,
mm-hmm,
the elementals, the sound, the crystals, the food, the I am. It's like whatever comes after the I am is what you're going to manifest
mm-hmm.
or what you're telling your higher self. I
Yeah.
am that I am. Yeah, man, I love that because like when you say I am thankful, I
Mm-hmm,
am grateful, I am worthy, I
mm-hmm,
am connected, you know, all of those words, and what am I thinking is what am I thinking something that is loving to me or not?
mm,
You know,
mm,
it has to be loving to me. And I learned that word in an episode that Dr. Joe Dispenza did when he was talking about his children and they were fussing with one another. And he said to the person who was, I think it was to the daughter, he was saying, is what your brother said, was that loving to you? And so
mm,
it's because love is such a high frequency itself.
mm-hmm,
Not the Hollywood style of love, like, oh, I got to give you something and then I'm going to love you. No, it's like an animal, like when dogs check for you or when cats check for you or when a baby checks for you.
mm-hmm,
They just showing that pure love, Russell, with no strings attached. And
mm-hmm,
they just look at you when you talk, getting back to the eyes and everything. When they look at you, they can really see who you are. Like they talk about the eyes are the window of the soul. So when those babies, ooh, I just
mm-hmm,
love it. Especially like I said yesterday at the Nicholas event, the people who are doing the Father's Day event have a newborn. But I think the newborn is maybe 2 months. I think 2 months. And he's teething already. He is so adorable. And I just picked him up and looked at his eyes and he looked at me and he started smiling. I'm telling you, this shit is magical.
mm-hmm.
It's
It's
so
so healing.
it
It's so
healing.
healing to be recognized like that.
Ah,
Yeah.
um,
And that was actually what I wanted to ask you guys about, because I know that, like, I mean, I'm sharing a lot, but I also, in that sense of like the receptivity, I'm picking up so much from both of you in just this short time. So from my knowledge, like I got a lot deeper into spirituality through crystals and like learning from I'm not gonna say ancestors, but women that were endowed in my life that really believed that and enabled that and walking that what I call the path of Isis, and really understanding these deeper in initiations in a way, and how to work with these elements and the stones. And I connected it through parts work that you do in psychology, but I wanted to really get an insight of what you guys' perspective of crystals and how you've been working with it, and what you feel like is that latent power that's within it.
Whew. Well, I tell you, for me, hanging out with nature was when thunder and lightning would come. I
Mm.
love thunder and lightning.
Yes, I
And
get. Me too.
uh-huh.
Me too.
Yeah. And when the energy comes short, I said, is that all you could bring? Come on now, I need more. You know what I mean? Because
Oh
it's like,
damn, you bold.
yeah, I do say it because I know that mankind cannot do this. And I know it's a frequency that
Mm.
happens. And sometimes when she comes real, like, pow, pow, like a
Mm-hmm.
tsunami or something like that, when the thunder, like, I said, can you please be gentle? Can you please be gentle? But crystals, like I come from a medical background as a licensed respiratory therapist. So I've been, you know, um, in that realm for a number of years. And I wasn't, I guess the crystals weren't ready. I wasn't ready for them or something like
Mm.
that because it didn't come until later on. And once that happened, it was like, oh my God, and then when I went through a breakup, I used celestite uh, crystal, which is good for heart healing, besides the rose quartz and everything else. But the fact of it is that sometimes I sleep with the crystals. I started wrapping crystals, and let me tell you,
Mm-hmm.
when you're wrapping a crystal, they know how that energy knows how they want to be wrapped. They
Mm-hmm.
know it because sometimes when I'm working with the copper and maybe a quartz crystal and I'm wrapping, and then I have to unravel it because that's not how that crystal wanted to be
Mm-hmm.
uh, presented.
Held. Yeah.
Yeah, but the main thing is that what got me going is the different layers of pyramids that are on the crystals.
Mm.
They're on rough rubies. They're all over in different um, ways. Just like I have a piece of black tourmaline that is linked with a Tibetan. It's on the matrix of the black tourmaline. So that means when the
Mm.
black tourmaline is being utilized, and I still have it, it's still available.
Mm-hmm.
When it's being utilized, it's like the energy of the black tourmaline goes up tenfold because it's linked with the quartz crystal.
Mm.
I'm just I have crystals. I'm fascinated by the energy that they bring. I work with a lot of shungite.
Mm.
Shungite, I work with the shungite and I put it
Yeah,
in
I
my
keep one in
water.
my bag all the time.
Yeah, elite shungite. I put it in my water. I there's just something. They're all over my house.
Mm.
I put them in the plants. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I just and I have them like when you enter my portal, so to speak, the sanctuary.
Mm-hmm.
They meet you even before you come up the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a journey for me, and it's still a journey. And like I said, I had no idea that I was going to be working with the elements, and then the sound frequencies, like it just the unfolding, like it continues, like with the bowl,
Mm-hmm.
working with the sound frequencies of the
Mm-hmm.
bowl, and then with the tuning forks.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
amazing.
I hear that,
And
because I just.
let me share something with you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, like, I have some bowls, I have them, and then I'll just keep on hitting it and hitting it, and it just does something to the cells to elevate you, because you might be feeling a way about something, and your intuition says, go and hit those bowls,
Mm-hmm.
and it just shifts the
Mm-hmm.
frequency. So I work with the tuning forks, I work with the crystals on the body,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the sound bowls are amazing.
Mm.
It's just evolving. It's like, oh, I'm there. Am I? No, I'm not there, because I'm constantly learning about these things. And just the other day, they were talking about the the, the crystals that are underneath the pyramids.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they had that story that it's like a power plant. Well, Uncle Henky could talk more about that. He knows about that. But when I read that, and I have these organite crystal pyramids that have the copper wrapped around the quartz crystal. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
and these are our tools for transformation. And so, like, when they talk about put on your full armor, what is your full armor? Your full
Mm-hmm.
armor, your word, your sound, your power, you know. And when I got into crystals, or crystals got, because we have crystals in our body when they were activated.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say, when crystals got into you. Uh-huh.
Right. When they're already there, you know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? It's just like, if I go to a crystal show, or it's just like, oh, this one wants to come, wants to come.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something that you have to think about, so to speak. It's just like, I need to have this, and like I said, I have them in different parts of the home, and I like to sleep with them, and along with the plants.
Mm-hmm.
So in this time, I feel more than ever, we have to put on our full armor. We have to
Mm-hmm.
bring nature. We have to bring nature back into our natural state of being.
Mm.
That's what I have to say.
Oh, I love that.
And
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I'm still evolving with it. I have different pieces that I wear. I wear copper as well. I
Mm-hmm.
have this bracelet that I created. The copper is from Ethiopia.
Oh,
You know what
wow.
I mean? Because copper acts as an amplifier too to
Mm-hmm.
whatever we're doing. And these are Palo Santo beads
Mm.
that I have. And then
I
this
love that.
crystal is an apatite, and
Oh,
apatite
yes.
is great for psychic ability. It
Mm-hmm.
enhances your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I love that.
I could talk with you for hours about these different things, but Uncle Hanky wants to chime in as we are past the 10. We're 10:10 right now. Uncle Hanky, you probably
Yeah, I also appreciate everything you just shared there. Because yeah, like you said, these are our tools,
and
and
we need them more than ever. We
right.
want to have them more than ever, because sitting and doing meditation is very important. Quieting your mind is important. And like I said, disconnecting from these devices,
Mm-hmm.
and you feel it. Your body lets you know
Mm-hmm.
that, hey, disconnect.
Go ahead
Mm-hmm.
and close it out, Kafunya, whenever you're ready. I'm backstage.
Oh, okay. So I'm gonna close it out with a a meditation to share out to the listening audience. And I thank my brother. I am honored to be speaking with you and sharing our earthly experiences. You know, I really give thanks for that and for Uncle Hanky inviting me into the vibration. So I'm going to pull up uh, something very beautiful and sending out the vibrations uh, to the world and to yourself first and foremost. You
Mm.
know, because it says, by thyself you should be true. You know, those are some of the words. And I wanted to say that the mind is a terrible thing to waste. The mind is so power filled. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So, hold on one second. I'm going to go get my striker. And I just want everyone to just, if you want to dim your lights and meditate on what you want to bring into this earth and send prayers to those who are feeling like they're not worthy and understanding that because you're here, you're chosen, not because of someone who would say, "Oh, I'm chosen. I'm the chosen people." No, because we're on earth, we are chosen. Nice deep breaths. Breathe in strength. Exhale stress. Om Shanti, Om Shanti. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Gam Gana Pataye Namaha. I am that I am. I am worthy. I am here. I am born to create. To the four directions of the earth, to all the plants, to all the animals, to our human brothers and sisters, to the planets, to the stars, everywhere, to the water, breathing like water, moving like water. I greet you in the name of I am, I am, I am that I am, I am that I am, I am that I am. And Maxwell, when you're ready, you can open your eyes and close out with words, sound, and power.
Thank you, sister. Um, just deep gratitude for such a beautiful reflection, for the cognitive abilities of Hank and his resonance and everything that he's holding here for everybody that tuned in. I appreciate your tea, your time, your energy, and attention. And thank you.
Ashe. And I want to let people know that our up and coming events at Nicholas Brooklyn this coming Friday the 13th, which is a lucky number, y'all. Don't get it
Oh,
twisted. We're having Brother Heru in the building. He's going to be showing people how they can come into comfort instead of dis-ease in the body by using natural means. Uh, the doors are at 5 p.m. You can call Nicholas Brooklyn at 718-858-4400, and he will be in the building with solutions and receipts. And prayerfully, I think he's going to be on tomorrow on Brother Rising Sun's platform. We'll confirm it early so you can invite the people to come in. So give thanks. Uncle Hanky?
You all done?
Yes, I
All
think.
right. Night,
All right.